No, John Young. Maybe he's just like, you know what? Your picks are so much better than mine that I'm just not even going to show up.
Or the opposite. My picks are so bad he doesn't even think I warrant his time of day anymore.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So for those tuning in, oh yeah, look who it is. There he is.
Almost right on time.
Almost.
We were debating whether you thought that my picks were so much better you didn't stand a chance, or if my picks were so pathetic that you didn't think I deserved your
I don't know.
attention anymore.
We definitely went different ways on this one.
Yeah.
I feel like we'll just end up middling it all and just agree we valued things just a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think there were some distinct patterns. Patrick sent me your list yesterday, and I just saw that. I was like, oh, I think there's a little bit of just a different way that we went about it, which we'll get to for sure. But before anything else, I just wanted to say I try my best to schedule these when there's not anything else going on. And I know that these past 2 weeks I have failed to do that because 30 minutes from now, Shut Up and Scribble is going on the Sevon podcast with JR and Taylor Self. Those are obviously friends of mine and guys that I always want to support. So I apologize for that. I also have to just kind of manage my travel schedule and when John's available and Patrick and trying to fit these things in. I'm hoping to be better about that going forward. But if you choose to stay with us live, I would hope that you guys would go check out their stuff afterwards. And if you prefer to flip over there and listen to them in 30 minutes, I hope you'd come back and check out the back end of our conversation about the women from the Madison era of the CrossFit Games. So if you weren't with us last week, we did the top 30 men from 2017 to 2023, which were the first and last years that the CrossFit Games were in Madison, Wisconsin. And we talked extensively at the beginning of that show about the nuances of the way that the games have changed over that time, the strange different years of 2019, 2020, which are always fun and challenging to kind of put into context compared to some of the other years. Even 2021 had some different processes for qualifying, with some of the semifinals being online and some being in person. So it's a great era of the CrossFit Games in our opinion, but also a pretty challenging one to really quantify and compare different performances from different times. We have had, and we will see for sure, athletes who only competed in 2017 and 2018, which in my opinion were very strong years. We kind of find out last week that John valued those years less than I did. And there's some athletes that have only competed in 2 years post those kind of strange seasons. And then, pretty, I would say it's unfortunate when this happens the most of anything, but there are a few athletes who only have or have some of their best and relevant data from those 2 seasons. And so trying to kind of put all that on paper and evaluate and try to process is not an exact science. And I think that it's important for people to understand that at the end of the day, all of these women and all of the men that we talked about last week are amazing. They're some of the fittest that have ever been around. They've done incredible things, and that's the reason that they're even involved in this conversation. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to highlight their careers. It is meant to be a little bit of a debate and also an opportunity for us to express different ways to quantify different information. Both of us are perfectly happy to have you choose our side or the other side or whatever, and that's fun as well. And I have been looking through the comments that you guys have made since Patrick put up our post this morning. At this point, aren't all seasons trained? Too true, Sarah Cooper, too true. and appreciate the kind of questions, comments, things that you guys have pointed out. So thank you guys for that. I'll let Patrick kind of guide the conversation from here.
Yes, I have some questions, but yeah, I think what we need to start off is basically talking about some notable omissions, and obviously, I did some research. I put on the good old research hat. There was 207 different women compete as individuals during this era, the Madison era, with 105 of those women competing during the 2019 season, which is as expected. That's the season where they took all the national champions. So so to whittle down that list of 209 different women down to 30, that's now no easy task. So I don't envy you guys for doing that, but as you guys will see, your lists were, in terms of the names on your list, they're pretty similar. Unlike the men's side where you had 3 different people in your top 30, you only had one different name. in your guys' respective lists. But let's go through some of the notable omissions. Paige Powers, who 2-time athlete. Some people might think 2 times isn't enough, but we'll talk about that soon. China Cho, and that number after the 2 times, that's their average placing during that era, the Madison era. China Cho, Mackenzie Riley 4 times, Karen Freyova 4 times, Margot Alvarez 2 times, Jacqueline Dahlstrom 3 times, Camelia Samuelson Hellman 3 times, Bailey Rail 3 times, Emily Bridgers 2 times, Danny Spiegel 4 times, Paige Demenza 4 times, and Lauren Fisher at 2 times. So the name that you guys had just off your list, especially for you, John, was Karen Freyova. Why didn't she crack your top 30?
Her resume wasn't as good as the other 30.
Okay.
I would say that she was probably the next one up for me,
As well.
alongside the woman that John had in 30th, which I believe was Emma Tall. Those are kind of the 2 that I left out that I was really trying to find space for. And just like on the men's side, we talk about it anytime we do rankings. There's just, you can only have one person per place, and at some point you run out of spots.
Yeah. And John, the mission that you had different from Brian was Cassie Lance McWhorter. Was there a reason why you left her off your list?
I mean, same thing. We can go. I think my 30th place was Emma Carrie.
Yeah.
And Emma Carrie has an 8th and a 16th, and I'm Cassie Lance McWhorter, so 12th and a 10th, right, in 2017, 2018. And I just value that 8th way more than I value her 10th in 2023 versus 2018 or whenever she did it in. 12 and 10, her average is 11, 16 and 8. Emma Carey's average is 12, in arguably a harder era. And so that's why, and she has the highest placement out of those 2. So I gave the nod to Emma Carey in that instance.
Yeah. Well, while we're talking about the Emmas, if those who've been following along with this list and the picks as Brian's put them out, it seems like the name Emma has caused a lot of I don't know, discrepancies. So let's talk with Emma Tall. I mean, that's the first Emma you have on your list. Brian doesn't. Brian had just off the list. And then we have Emma Lawson, who you guys had 8 spots between your picks. The same with Emma Carey. And then Emma McQuade, which we'll get to later, she was the largest discrepancy with 10 spots. So that was like a trend that I picked on, is like you guys valued Emmas differently. So
yeah,
and
somewhat,
what's the Emmas?
I mean, it's not just Emma's. I think like as far as the women goes, longevity for me weighed way more than having 2 good years, but really, really good years. There was about 4 or 5 girls that like are top 10, top 5 even games athletes, but they've only been at it 2 years. And I ranked the girls that had basically their career in the Madison era, where they spanned the entire Madison era, even though there might be gap years here and there. And all of those women were ahead of the girls that had 2 good years for me, all of them. And if you value the top placement, but you're only 1 year, you got 2nd place, but it was 1 year and the other one was 6th or 7th. If you think that's enough to displace their entire career in the Madison era, then you'll rank those girls ahead. I don't even and I'm not even going to debate which one's right or wrong. This is literally just your preference.
Yeah.
I know, if it was 3 years, I think for some reason it's the difference between 2 and 3 for me is huge. If it was 3 years, I think Mal O'Brien and Emma Lawson would be much, much higher on my list. But it's not. It's 2 years. And then in Mal O'Brien's case, didn't do the games the next year. So it's so for me, they ranked lower than the women that had a career throughout the whole entire Madison era that was somewhat substantial. The Carrie Pierces, the Brooke Wells, women like that. And we'll get into it. I know we'll get into that. But so I valued that longevity more than the 2 really good years. And then I had the girls that had very good placings. And then it was the longevity again. And then the girls that had 2 placings that were 8th and 16th, right? Or fifth and 24th in Alex Kazan's case. Alexis Raptis, 6th and 19th. Or,
Yeah.
you know, like
No,
those girls
not
ranked.
6th and 19th. Raptis is 6th and 10th. And I think, and like looking at your
Who
list,
am I thinking of 19th then? It doesn't matter. 2 good years is what I'm
you're
saying.
thinking of Dallas
Right?
Pepper.
Yeah. That's who I was thinking of.
That one.
Yeah. And then though they ranked beneath the other women that had long careers but weren't as good, obviously, like Emily Rolfe, right?
I think the one other thing that I noticed from your list is that you and it's just consistent with what you did last year, is you do value their best finish. So like the thing that stood out to me about like everything that you said seemed consistent in the way that you did your list, except for Alex Kazan. Like that 24th is notably different than the other women who had two years and good finishes that made it on your list. And when I looked at your list and I saw her ranked ahead of Alexis Raptis, who has a 6th and a 10th based on a 5th and a 24th, that didn't mesh with me compared to everything else that you did. Can you talk us through that decision?
Yep. So I think you value poor placements way more than I do. Like I think, and consistency is a big deal across years for sure. But like you take a poor placement and you put it against that person way more than I do. I think a difference between a 10th and a 20th place in the CrossFit Games solely can be on programming, just who got lucky with the programming. And then once you get past the top 10, it's kind of a tier system. And we've talked about this. But that 10 through 20, especially in the women, I really think programming matters so much. And so like if a person finishes 10th versus a 24th, yes, it's substantial, but it's not like that substantial. In my opinion. But the reason why I have Alex Kazan higher, and I'm willing to admit defeat on this, because Alexis Raptis, like her average placement finish, whatever you want to use, it's better than Alex Kazan. Everything she's done has been better than Alex Kazan, except the top finish. And Alex was 5th and she was 6th. But for me, and this is a little bit of a personal thing, for me, Alex Kazan is higher on my list because she looks like she's ascending. She's 24th and then 5th, and I think she's only going to get better. She looks like she's improving time after time after time. And Alexis Raptis, to me, is going to be that person who's great, but is going to be the same great, like a Lazar, like a Gabby McGowan. And they're going to be like, you know, consistently top 10 girl, never breaks into the podium.
I think
I don't see that with Alex Kazan.
Yeah, but at this point, we haven't seen whether that manifests itself or not.
But I get that manifestation in Madison, a 10th to a 6th. And when you were leading and you kind of let the whole thing go, right, at the last day, I get it. Like, you know, you were in first. Alexis Raptis, you didn't let the whole thing go. But you're in first place.
Just to clarify, not everyone will know immediately what you're referring to there.
Yeah. Alexis Raptis in first place after day 1 looks fantastic, looks amazing. And then just little by little is worse and worse as the competition goes on and ends up 6th. Alex Kazan, like you see a 10th and a 6th. You're based in the program. You might have not even improved that year, like your actual fitness.
Yeah,
Alex Kazan, you see the progression. You see, next year, that girl, like she's got so much potential, and you could see it in the Madison era. And it's one spot, right? And again, I'm willing to admit, you'll put Raptors up there. Sure, that's fine. But that's why I have Alex one spot. For me, she does more for me in the Madison era than Alexis Raptis does.
So this is the biggest thing I had. And Veronica brings up a good point here. But this is only Madison era, John.
Future you see the ascension in the Madison era.
I understand it, but the way I look at this is like if I had to 10 years from now, if I had to look at who were the best athletes in the Madison era, like, you know, that's what I want to look at. Madison era, not like potential and that's where I kind of get caught up with, like putting some of these young athletes who's done really well the last couple years versus someone who's been around like an Annie who's shown it consistently throughout the whole era.
And I'm with you most of the way, Patrick.
Yeah.
But he just asked about them two specifically.
Yeah.
And that was my differentiator for them two specifically.
Well, the thing is, you and Alex, you and John, you actually placed her in the same spot at 24th 4th overall, and we'll get to that. You
Yeah,
guys
it wasn't like I
had,
ranked her wrong, or you know what I mean. It wasn't like that.
No, I just think you had Alexis low. And I think
Yeah.
that, like, when I looked at when I saw your list and I looked at that, I went back to say, like, man, was I over projecting what she did? And
No, and I knew you were going to have Alexis ahead of Alex. Like when I did this, I knew that.
Yeah.
But for me,
I would have probably
well,
done
I
the
just
same
want to push
thing.
back on your thing about the 10th and the 20th. Like, this is a 10th and a 24th. That's 330 points. That's a ton of points. And like, can 330 points make up a programming from programming? I don't think so. The next year, they're only separated by 25 points. Alex obviously closes hard. Alexis fades a little bit in the competition, but still improves. And I think that even moving up 2 spots in the top 10 is a notable improvement year after year, especially with the consistent excellence that we have from certain women in the field. And I think that it was just a little bit of a disservice to Alexis to have her below Alex and quite frankly that low in general.
No, yeah. Well, let's now that we kind of
where do you have Alexis Raptis?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Yeah.
We're on the topic. I think it's relevant.
I have her. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, Patrick, we'll back up to Sam Briggs and those others in a minute, but we can stay here. Yeah, I had Alexis in 18th. And I basically had a grouping of women in this range. Right behind her, I had Tennil, Beuerlein, and Cassie Lance McQuade, who also had 2 appearances, both from much earlier in the era. And then I did have Rolf in there with 4 appearances with 1 withdraw, and then Emma Carrie at the tail end of that group. But I mean, even Sigmund's daughter was after that, and then Gazan. And so that was like, I kind of grouped these women into this section between 18 and 24 that had 2 to 3 appearances spread out over that time period, all of which had at least 1 top 10 finish and fairly consistent performance, meaning, a 24th from Gazan is actually the worst of any of those finishes. The next worst is a 21st from Sigmund's daughter. Everything else is 18th or better for all.
Yeah, okay, but like you
the
could
best
see
finish
top 10 with Sarah.
Yeah, so the best individual finish of all of those is Sarah, who had a 4th in the first year of the era, and then Alex, who had a 5th last year. Both Tennil and Alexis Raptis had 6th, but they were on opposite ends of those time periods.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's like, I kind of just had a grouping of athletes there, and I had Alexis at the top of it and Alex Gazan at the bottom of it. And I had Alexis at the top of it because over her 2 years, I felt she was the best against the best fields. And in Alex's years, she competed against the same fields, but she had the worst finish. And as you've acknowledged, I do factor in those bottom finishes a little bit more heavily than you do.
Yeah. And that's fair. And if you ever have Alexis at the top of that stat, you can. I kind of just grouped Alexis and Alex together. And the rate of improvement that you could see year from year does a lot for me. Like that like you notice that. And I know it doesn't play in any kind of a number at all.
And I actually think that's incredibly important to say, is that there are things that John and I are looking at when we see athletes that the stats won't tell the story for. And I think that, in this context of this conversation with some of these 2-year athletes, that's where I am looking at a Mal O'Brien and Emma Lawson. I'm saying, I know they only had 2 years, but damn, were those impressive years.
Well, let's talk about someone that had maybe not an impressive year, but impressive years. And Brian, when you first put out the list, you got a lot of pushback on this. And I would have to agree with some people. I wouldn't put Sam Briggs at 30th. I know, John, you had her at 28th, which,
where would you put her, Patrick?
I would have probably put her at 26th, 25th. I know it probably doesn't seem like a big jump, but when the way I look at Samantha Briggs is, she competed at 4 games. She's an icon of the sport. Take away what she did before in the Carson era. Still, she competed 4 times, average placing in 19th, and she had 2 event wins. And she's worn the leader jersey in two instances. Where
has Emily Rolfe had two wins in the games?
She's had 3, I believe.
So Emily Rolfe's had 3 event wins, 3 years. Yep. 3 years versus Sam's 4, if you want to count like the weird years.
Weird year, yeah.
Average placement is way higher than Sam's by like 3 or 4 points. Mm-hmm. And in no way is Emily Rolfe under Sam Briggs, other than she's not an icon. Mm-hmm. And you would rank her higher. You would rank Sam Briggs higher.
He might have some different ordering as well, but let's just stay with Sam, because I did see all the comments and the critiques coming out, and I was like, oh man, I really wonder where John ended up putting her. And I was happy when he put her 28th, which is obviously pretty close to 30th there. And I think that it just when you look at what she's done during this era, and obviously there is an element of Sam Briggs historically that transcends this conversation. Like, she has redefined what's possible in terms of women and women as they get older in the sport and at the top end of expression of fitness, and to an extent that no other athlete has, male or female. But when you just look at what she was able to do during this time period, you can't say, oh, because she was older, I'm just going to give her the benefit of the doubt. She had a top 10 finish. She was 9th in 2017. And to me, this was kind of like the end of the Sam Briggs that we knew from that 2013 through 18 or 19 or 17 era, excuse me. She missed 2018 due to injury, unable to do the semifinal. And she came back for both of the years that were truncated. So she got cut in a group of women that are all on this list in 2019 in the second to last cut. So she had to do half of the workouts that year. And in 2020, she competed online, and she finished in the bottom 5 or 6 of the field that competed there. And those years, like, that's, it's the same that everyone had to deal with, but there's nothing that's like standing out or notable that Sam Briggs did in those years. And then she comes back and to me, the most impressive really thing that she did was this year. It was the 2021 year where she's qualifying well into the Masters age divisions, and she came within one spot of finish of making the final cut. She ends up getting cut there, and this to me is like echoing Chandler Smith. We talked about Chandler Smith last week, and it's like this guy just keeps getting cut at the last spot before we get to see how good he is during this time period. And so some of it's a product of just the way that the competitions were designed that year. But apart from that 9th, during those 3 years, she never was able to finish the entire competition. And she has I think the only person on my entire list with a lower event average finish than her, or a lower average finish than her, is the person one spot ahead of her for me, which is Emma McQuade, which is drastically reduced due to basically the fact that she was competing pretty injured last year.
Well, let's talk. I mean, we already talked about Emma Carrie. Let's talk about Emma McQuade then. This was the discrepancy in terms of 10 spots between Brian, you had Emma McQuade at 29, and John, you had her at 19th.
Yeah, I'm surprised you had her so low. I think you're really low on Emma McQuade. You like Emma McQuade.
I love Emma McQuade, and not just as an athlete, she's an incredible person. And I think that when I'm looking at this now, I definitely undervalued her. And I would say
212s. I mean, and you got Raptors is just 1, 6, and 10 is so high for you.
Yeah, go ahead. But those 6 and 10, like, that's consistent excellence in the years that she made it. That's better than anything that she ever did, than Emma McQuade was ever able to do. And I mean, I would say I should probably have her a couple spots higher, but even if you just go one spot up from that, you see on my list Caroline Reason-Thibault, who has an 11th, and then Alessandra Pacelli also has an 11th. Turi Helgegaard has a 9th. Bethany Shadburn has an 8th. Kazan has a 5th. Sigmund's-Daughter a 4th. So every one of these women has had a better competition at some point during this era than Emma McQuade did. And this, I mean, I think that just in general, the things I'm about to say speak to just at the top end of the women's sport, it's hard to break through. And when you look at this resume, I mean, I saw people that were like, what is wrong with you? Lowen at 17. I can't wait to see the people ahead of her. And it's like, you're going to see them. They're phenomenal. Like all of these women have impressive resumes, even down here in the bottom of this list. And so she didn't have as good of a performance as any of those. She does have 5 consecutive qualifications, which absolutely counts for something. And it was just a bummer this year. She just competed injured most of the season. And so we got to see a worse version of her than we've ever gotten to see. But I could justify having her maybe as high as 25th, but I think she's definitely in the bottom 5 or 6 here.
Again, Pacelli, Thibault, and Thury, you guys, there was about a 5-spot difference between all that, between both of your lists. The one I do want to bring up is Tennil. You have her at 26, John, and Brian has her at 19th. About a difference of 7 spots, which is similar to what you had with Raptus. So why Tennil so low on your list here? Is it especially someone who values those earlier years so much?
Well,
I don't think John values
I think
those
you got
early
that
years
mixed
too
up.
much.
I think you got that mixed
you're
up.
right.
I would say he
Sorry, you're right.
values the top end finish and a sixth
Yes.
place in
There you go.
2017.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is that doesn't really weigh as heavily as maybe even an 8th or a 10th in these last couple of years.
Correct.
I
Gotcha.
100%.
you.
I mean, I'm doing Tennil Beuerlein a service putting her at 26th. Okay. Emma Carrie's 8th and 16th is more impressive to me than Tennil Beuerlein's 6th and 12th that she has in the first 2 years. And like you could say that, Brian, drop Emma Carrie in 2017. You think she beats Tennil Beuerlein? Because I do.
I wanna pull something up here that I don't have open. Give me 1 second. It's this comment that I made a few minutes ago about just the how difficult it is to break into the women's field.
Time out. Veronica, I have watched more of those years than anybody in the comments ever. I promise you. Okay. I'll give you detail for detail, event after event, 1 through 14 in any year you want to pick. You can ask Brian off the top of my dome.
Be nice to Veronica. Do you see how beautiful that picture is? So, if you look back at 2017, this is the year that she finished 6th, and the women who finished ahead of her, Toomey, Saunders, Thor's daughter, Sigma's daughter, David's daughter. I mean, and this was, and the people that she beat that year, Holte, Jamie Green, Briggs, Carrie Pierce, Kristi Ermo, Brooke Wells, and I know they're all at different parts of their career, but the point is the fields back then were as good as they are now, in my opinion. They were strong, really well accomplished athletes, and for her to come in as a rookie and place 6th against that field, I think that you're doing a disservice by not acknowledging how impressive that year was for her. She comes back, and I know it's a worse performance, and backs it up with another good finish. Pretty much all of the names that I just mentioned, except for Sigmund's daughter, show up again that year. And you have the insertion of Laura Horvath. Carrie Pierce bumps up, basically switches performances with Tennil Reed. Brooke Wells does a little better that year. Eremo does a little better that year. And it's just like when you look through that list of the names that competed in the women's field in 2017 and 18, I think that it's really close to on par with the quality 1 through 20 that we had these last 2 years.
1 through 20?
Yes.
I disagree wholeheartedly.
I know, but that's what I'm saying is like I'm still valuing those
Laura
performances.
Horvath would destroy Tia Toomey and Cara in 2017 if you dropped them in there. Destroy. Would not be close.
I understand what you're saying. You're saying that the entire level of competitor has evolved, and I'm not disagreeing with that.
Mhm.
But at that time, to finish 6th against those women was incredibly difficult. No one would have expected a rookie in Tennil Reed to be able to beat half those names that she beat.
No, for sure. And I buy that argument. I actually have a personal thing against Tennil Beuerlein. Would you believe it or not, this is a fun it's not really a fun story, but she followed me in 2018, and I wasn't doing anything. I'm still kind of new to CrossFit, quite frankly. I'm watching the docs. This is the stage I'm in. I'm watching the documentaries, right? And then I looked 1 week later, and she unfollowed me. So she follows people and then unfollows people. At least in 2018, she did that, and I've lost all respect ever since then. Because people, I don't know if people still do that, but people do that. They follow a bunch of people, see if they, and then they'll unfollow them after they follow them back. And that just doesn't sit right with me. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, that's messed up. That 6 is as good as a 26.
Thank you.
I'm glad I'm not on these rankings then, or I have to start following John again.
But I think that the conversation about Tennil Beuerlein is very much in line with kind of what we introed it with. All this conversation is I'm putting some value on the 2-year impressive performances in a different way than he is, and I'm respecting the performances from 2017-18 at a higher level than he is. There's nothing wrong with that, but if you don't understand it, then you're not going to understand where we're coming from in the conversation.
Yeah. All right, moving into the top 25. We have this is where Alexis wrapped us. We already discussed it. Bethany Shadburn or Flores. She goes by Flores now. Back then it was she had she went by Branham, her name, and then then Shadburn. So a 7-spot difference on her.
Can I speak on this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is where me and Brian just valued things a lot differently. If you see the women ahead of Bethany Flores are just about all the women, Alex Gazanta, Alexis Raptis, who have had 2 amazing finishes or really, really good finishes. And then Bethany Flores, her longevity is below all of those places. And then for me, it's almost the same people, but in a different order. And I have Bethany Flores above all of those people with 2 very good finishes. And that's just because of her consistency throughout the whole era. She's got a whole lot of gap years. She's always had something that happens to her, whether it's COVID
Well, the thing is,
broken back, whatever.
When you look at it, it's actually less than you realize. If you don't,
I know it's only 2 years, but it's
so over this 7-year stretch, she actually qualified for the games 6 out of 7 times, and it's probably the most unfortunate thing of all of this entire era is that we never got to see her compete in 2021, and she couldn't have. She was she was seriously sick to the point where she couldn't compete even if she'd been allowed to. But everyone who watched her at semifinals that year in the West Coast Classic beat Danielle Brandon and the rest of the field in a really impressive way that showed consistency with the opportunity for excellence. And there were people projecting her to be in podium contention, and I didn't hear anyone who knew what they were talking about thinking that anything outside of the top 10 was even realistic for her. Obviously, it was a great field that year, and it would have been, she would have needed to have a good display to make those accomplishments. But it just, if she does have a top 10 finish that year, then I think she's probably higher on both of our lists by a significant amount. But the reality is, when you look at it, she didn't get the chance to compete. So we miss her in 21, we miss her in 22. You see her best finish in 2019, where she finished 8th. And that was that year for the women. It just doesn't, it's so hard to know. I feel like that those people that were 6th through 10th on the women's side that year likely would have finished 10 spots lower than they all did if the field behind them was so good that got cut, and so consistently good in the years leading up to that I feel like over the course of 6 more events and 2 more days of competition, that would have won over many of the women. And so I rank that 8th place finish as the lowest value 8th place finish of anything on the list, maybe on par with the online year the following year. And then, outside of that, 15th last year was her best finish. And again, it's like, this could have been better, but she just can't do the heavy weights. And so I feel like we've just been robbed of the best version of Bethany Shadburn more often than not. I do want to acknowledge that it's very much like Tim Paulson to me. Like, she's been good enough to make it throughout the entire era, and you have to respect that. And like John said, the difference in her placing on my list compared to his is just where we're valuing the 2-year and 3-year athletes, not where we're valuing Bethany Shadburn.
Yeah, agreed. I want to say the most impressive thing on her resume is, in my opinion,
is that she's still following you. Is that the most impressive thing?
No, I don't know if she is or not. Is the 16th to 2018, and then 2023, she's 15th. And for her to have that many up and downs in her career, she has, just with injuries or whatever. She's still actually one of the fittest women in the world for 8 straight years.
Yes, I wonder where the 15th place version of her would have finished against the 16th place version of her in 2018.
Way better.
I don't know about that.
Oh, 100%, Brian. 100%. You should ask her. I guarantee you she knows. Can I answer a couple comments on here? I got y'all. I think I would impress you. We should have a Stump the Schwab type deal if you've ever watched that show. This one's hard. Let me think about it. For a Cave Dastro, Marcus Hendren, for sure on the men's side. I remembered because everybody was shocked by that farm boy speed. This was also, I believe, I might get his name wrong, Brian. You might know his name. Michael Mogard. He tore both of his hamstrings. He won his heat, but tore one hamstring, and then got 5th in the next one. And then on the final, he tore his other hamstring. It was crazy.
And he made it to that final heat, which was full of pretty well renowned
heavy hitters.
athletes.
Dan Bailey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Barkley. I'm gonna take a shot in the dark. I'm gonna say
12th place on an event is like, that's asking.
no,
quite a
but I got it played in my head a little bit though. I'm just trying to think of names that have come through, and then I'm gonna take a shot in the dark. I'm gonna go here. You guys too, Brian. I'm gonna say Brent Fikowski. Who do you say, Brian?
Heavy 17.5, 12th place, men and women.
Just men, because I said men. So
just men.
Yeah.
I will take, man. I'll take Vellner, I guess. I mean, I have no idea.
you just gotta remember how the heats go. All right, somebody in the comments check us out. All right, because I don't know.
Yeah. But you did get you're right on the men's.
Oh, I know I'm right on the men's. The women's is a harder thing. Like Lindy Barber, maybe. I don't know the women's for sure.
It's a one-off.
Boom, baby, let's go. Wrong. I didn't think I did that right.
That's insane.
That's pretty good, right? I was total shot in the dark.
Hey. Good job.
I guarantee I couldn't do that for the women. I know the men's played pretty well in my head. Michelle Crawford.
Ooh, only event winner for career.
I imagine. I don't know her name. See, this is where Brian would know more than I do, because he would have he has Michelle Crawford. He knows what this name is, and I've never heard of her in my life.
No, it was her only year at the games, and she finished in the bottom 10, but she was really good at sprinting.
So, Alex Gazan,
Gazan,
Sarah Sigmund's daughter.
I can't believe you got Fikowski.
Right? I know. I'm pretty excited.
It's pretty impressive.
Barkley, tell me where Vellner finished on that workout. But Patrick, move on.
Yeah. So Gazan, Sarah, you guys got them both dead on back to back. They're 2 of 7 that you actually both hit right on the button in terms of picking the same placing or same ranking.
You know, it's funny, Patrick. I feel like because we valued things differently, right? I obviously thought longevity throughout the thing was more important. Brian placed, way off. Man, you just had it reversed.
It's the inversion of the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. He's dyslexic.
And then he values like the highest placement, the best finish with just the 2-year thing. But there's middle ground people of that, and then all of those people are the same ranking.
Yeah. And we'll get, I mean, as you can see right here, it's kind of the same way. I mean, you have some one-offs here and there, but let's look into some of those one-offs. I mean, I
want to ask John a question, actually, because the other person that I took a hit with in terms of the comments on the bottom half of these rankings was Ariel Lowen. And people were like, man, I can't believe you have her outside the top 15.
Recency bias.
Yeah, but again, I mean, it's similar to the Lucas Hogberg. Like, it's a third place. It's a podium at the CrossFit Games. It's legitimate. And she's had 2 other good years leading up to that, showing that progression that John talks about. So I want to know from John, since we had the same ranking there, why he also had Ariel outside the top 15 for the women.
Okay, so I mean, if you want to just look at my rankings, I have Emma Lawson and Mal O'Brien above Ariel Lowen. Right? Why are they above Ariel Lowen? Well, they both have a 2nd place, and then they have a 6th and a 7th place.
And she's never beaten either one of them.
Right. Ariel Lowen's only had 3 years. In like, I know it kind of feels like she's been around forever, but she hasn't. So it's 3 to their 2, and their 2 are better than her 3, especially on the podium, which gives even more value. So those 2 for me are automatically above Ariel Lowen. And then you want to take like Amanda Barnhart and Kristin Aramo, which are my next people. Barnhart's been in since 2018 and has pretty darn consistent results. She's a
7th through 15th for the 5 years.
The 7th was in the weird years. So like I would say top 15, no matter the scenario. 2023, I'm gonna throw out just because other circumstances.
We can't. There were other life circumstances that affected that for sure. But the point is that she was consistently in the top 15 throughout this entire era.
Sure. Yes. And I valued that better than like her finishes are just as good as Ariel Lowen's, except for the 3rd place. But she's done it over 6 years versus Ariel's 3. And I just thought that was more valuable. Same with Kristin Aramo.
One of the before you continue, one of the questions that someone asked is, how can you have someone ranked lower on their in their rankings for this era than they ever finished at the CrossFit Games? And they were referring to Lowen, who is at 17th with the worst finish at the
So
Games
you'd
at
have
14th.
us
That's
rank low in
many.
third.
No, lower than her worst finish, 14th.
Okay,
But this is true for many women, right? I mean, Cassidy Lance McWhorter has nothing worse than a 12. She's not even on John's list. Emma Carey is 16th is her worst. I have her 22nd. He's got her 30th. So it's just goes back to this point that I made earlier. And if Ariel Lowen's your favorite athlete, yeah, you're going to be bummed not to see her higher. But we can't accommodate that. There's not enough spaces. And what I think what John's getting at as he runs through these athletes ahead of her is this concept that these women in the top 15 are they're
have had better
so
careers.
good. All of them are so good. And
I mean, it's
so
okay.
Impressive.
They've had better careers, and it doesn't mean they're the fittest person, right? Like Mal O'Brien, and when she got second, is probably Mal O'Brien and Emma Lawson are fitter than everybody on this list except Laura and Tia.
Right.
It's okay. Like it's not who's the fittest. It's who's had the best career in the Madison era.
Yeah, but none of them work out in their garage.
Okay.
Actually, I'm sure.
Well,
I
think Emma Lawson might actually.
Yeah, I think Aramo does too. So, but anyways, Haley Adams does as well. She has a garage gym as well. I've seen it, and I think Carrie Pierce has a pretty good one too. But anyways,
and the barn at the Fraser's house is basically a garage.
Yeah,
all right, we get it. People have garages. Let's go.
We gotcha. All right, so that right ahead of Ariel is Mal O'Brien on John's list at 16th. Brian has her at 8th, so we're at a difference of 8 spots. So
okay, I'm gonna go down to. Go ahead, Patrick. Sorry.
I mean, I'm gonna have to kind of side on John on this. And this, which is it's kind of hard because John said earlier something about potential, but it seems like he kind of took her potential out of it and just based it on her actual finishes compared to the field ahead of her. Whereas Brian, it looks like that you might have ranked her higher based on her potential or the quality of field during those years.
And it's also just an intangible thing that John's already mentioned is how good these two women are. And I think about them very similarly to how I think about Ricky Garrard and the fact that he only had 1 year and it was a 3rd place, but I know that this guy is incredibly fit and he's made some, even in one legitimate season and one illegitimate season, he made an impression. And I feel that both of those women have done that to an extremely high caliber. And if we were going to have him, this how I was thinking about it is like if we had him 11th with 1 podium finish just outside the top 10, both these women have had a better individual finish than him against, it's the best 2 fields that we've seen. Yes, Emma Lawson's second came when Tia wasn't in the field, and there was someone who acknowledged that and said, how can you value that the same as Mal having a second with Tia in the field? And it's like splitting hairs. The one thing that I would say is, John and I have them back to back on our rankings, and it's if you're going to rank one of them somewhere, you got to put the other one there.
Yeah, and I have no problem with where Brian.
I think that 10th and 11th, maybe 11th and 12th, somewhere there. Middling the in between is probably the most rational thing to do with these athletes.
Yes.
I'm curious why Haley Adams over Carrie Pierce.
Yeah, I mean, it's once you got into this top 10, it was crazy.
I agree with that too.
With John's question or with my statement?
Yeah, because looking at, you take.
Basically, I'm looking at So looking at these 2 women, Carrie was in the exact same situation as Bethany Shadburn in 2021, where she qualified. She was there. She tested positive. She was unable to compete. And so when everything's said and done, we got 4 competitive years from both of them in 4 consecutive years with 2 overlapping years. And Carrie Pierce goes from 17 to 20. Adams goes from 19 to 22. The 2 years they competed against each other were 2019 and 2020. They finished 1 spot apart from each other in both of those years. Carrie got the better of her in both of those years by that 1 spot. In the 2 years prior to that, Carrie was 10th and 6th. In the 2 years after that, which I would say they're comparable fields, maybe a little better.
Yeah, I like that.
She had a 5th and a 9th. I debated going back and forth between these 2. And I was like, I mean, their average event finish is a sixth, or overall finish is sixth. It's exactly the same. They both had 2 event wins. It's like the resumes were so similar. And
Then how do you not give the nod to the person who made the podium in dramatic fashion? It's all about, it's also moments, right? 2020 counts. I know it's at Carson, but that last mile sprint on Atalanta for her life, like she has like Carrie Pierce, and then Mary, like Carrie Pierce has moments in the games that will stand out for CrossFit history.
And that's,
I mean,
I
you
love
think of Ailey Adams, man, she's a good runner. But what are some of the moments that's sticking out on CrossFit? You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how you give the nod to Haley over Carrie when they're the same person, but one's been on the podium and one hasn't.
And I have to agree with John on that, because when I look at this whole Madison era, the things that stick out, when you look back at the Madison era, you don't really think about athletes more than you think about moments. Now, granted, this is an athlete list, but which one of these athletes have a more memorable performance? And I have to say, Carrie, those two, I mean, those event wins and how she did it, and how the one in Atalanta where she basically knocked, Haley out of the podium spot. She did everything she had to do. And that's one thing I look at when I look at this list, is like, these names mean something to me, but the memories do too. And, that's why I value some people higher than others. And I think that's where my list, where what John said, that's where I kind of put a little bit more emphasis on, is like, when you look at the Madison era in a whole, what sticks out, and it's usually those moments are more the deciding factor.
Yeah, and those are the things that I wrote about in the article concerning Carrie Pierce as well, is that, her 2 event wins came on extremely memorable performances. The Mary that he references, not just an event win, but the exact same workout, beating all the men in terms of total reps as well. And I'm absolutely willing to concede, flipping them on the rankings there.
It's so funny. I feel like we always have, like, there's one that I completely botch, and like, you're in the right, and I have to try to argue my case, but like, you're in the right. And then there's always one the opposite way too, and it always surprises me. Do you get surprised with that? Like, I always feel like we all both have one. Like, mine was leaving Ben Smith off and Jay Crouch being where he was at, and then yours was freaking having Guy as like a top 15 guy or whatever he was, and then Lucas Hogberg just hates Sweden, and then and this one is Alexis Raptis and Alex Kazan, and then Haley Adams and Carrie Pierce. I always feel like that. I don't know if you feel like that, but I always feel like we all both have one that we kind of miss.
No, absolutely. And I think that's why I like doing these shows. And I mentioned it on the men's side last week. I wrote those articles, and those are my rankings. But basically, they were just to give an opportunity for you to get excited for this show and see a little summary of what each of these athletes did during that time period. But I think there's tremendous value in having those 2 different perspectives. And usually it's the conversation that will yield the most, what probably we would have loved to have both been able to do on our own, but having different perspectives and different voices in the conversation helps with that.
Well,
and I want to explain.
I'm not going to leave you off. I'm not going to let you off the hook though, John. Is that?
Was it on? I feel like Brian was on the hook for that. Go ahead.
Well, I took your side on one, but I have a question regarding you.
Okay.
Maybe those moments that you're talking about, is that what kind of like drove you to put Danielle Brandon 10th, whereas Brian has her 14th? Is that why you have her so high compared to Brian? Is those moments?
No, I think Danielle Brandon just has a really good career. Let's look at her versus
career-wise, yes.
Let's look at her versus Gabby, and then we can
okay,
because he's got Gabby ahead of Danielle Brandon, like 2 spots, right? And I'm the opposite, right? So let's just get Jamie Simmons middles it. Let's compare those 2, and we'll decide who's better of those 2, why you put those 2, because that will kind of, you're looking at, is this person better than this person when you're making these rankings. So like Gabby, where's Danielle? Let me find it.
Well, I could say this: both of them qualified as a rookie for the games in 2019. They had very different experiences that year. Gabby McGowan got cut in the first event with her biggest weakness, similar to Tim Paulson, is a legless rope climb back then. And so she ends up, after a couple of drug failures, finishing 75th. Danielle Brandon was the last woman, or the first woman, that missed the cut, and unjustly so, as Anna Fragkow would go on to fail her drug failure. So she's credited with the 10th, but she didn't get to compete on the back half of the weekend. So we get extreme. We get basically no opportunity to see Magawa that year, and we get limited insight into who Danielle Brandon is. You want to take it from there, John?
Yeah. But like if you look, so Danielle Brandon finishes 10th place in that in 2019. And Gabby's 75th. I'm not going to hold that against Gabby at all. I don't hold 2019, 2020 finishes against people. And Veronica asked this question, or Barkley asked this question, and Veronica answered it. It's exactly right. I don't really care for 2020 unless you made the top 5. And then I do think it matters. And especially if you're differentiating between, and they're both in the top 5 in 2020, then it matters a lot. So it's very case by case scenario. But Danielle's 15th, Gabby's 18th, and then the next year, Danielle's 11th, Gabby's 6th, and then Danielle has her best year. It's she gets 4th and Gabby gets 8th, and then Gabby has her best year. She is 4th and Danielle's 9th. They're very, very similar. Their resumes. I just thought Danielle was more consistent. I'm not even talking about moments. Gabby's. I'm almost playing the Brian card. Gabby's 75th and 18th for me. Just like. She was not consistently great throughout the era. She had 3 really great years, and where I thought Danielle was consistent throughout 5 years, and it's with the best year being 4th for both of them. It's like if Gabby had a 3rd, I'd put Gabby ahead of her because of that 3rd place podium. She is the best finish. But since they're tied on finishes, they're tied on that best finish. I went with who I thought was the most consistent throughout the whole era.
But why not? But why not go to the 2nd and 3rd best finish, which are both Magawa?
Because I don't care.
Yeah, but that's ridiculous. I mean,
the 2nd and 3rd. Then we're talking about who's the most consistent. Then why not the 4th and the 5th? Oh, her 5th best finish is 75th.
And she won the most iconic event ever during the Madison era.
Yeah, but no one will remember it because of Rebecca Fuseli
and Haley Adams.
True.
Yeah. So and it is worth. I do think in the case of these 2 athletes, it's worth acknowledging their event wins. As Patrick mentions, Gabby Magawa was the female winner of the Capital event in 2022, and Ricky Garrard, they went at the same time. Ricky Garrard wins it for the men. That steals some spotlight. Gabby wins it in the midst of other men finishing, so it's diminished. And then there's obviously this iconic fan moment at the end of the race for the women that kind of stole the show. And so even though it was this iconic event, because of the way it was designed, I feel like a lot of the spotlight around that was taken away from her. And Danielle Brandon has 4 event wins, all of them in handstand walking events in 4 consecutive years. And while they are spectacular and fun to watch, I would have to say that they're really similar to Guy Maieros's wins if you're going to take John's perspective and say, yeah, so she's the best in the world at this one thing. So what?
I 100% I agree. I agree 100%. And I did not put her ahead because of moments. I could care less about her handstand walking moments. She's the best handstand walker in the world. She's always going to win that event. Like 100% what Brian just said. I expect it. It's not a moment because I expect it. If me and Brian go bench press and I bench press more than him, it is not a great feat. We expect.
Whoa, dude! I was doing 40-pound dumbbell bench inclines for 10s today. Let's go.
You have like a Jackie Dahlstrom who gets 2nd in the sandbag event. That's unexpected. That's a moment, right? I don't care that Danny Spiegel can lift a heavier sandbag than everybody. She's supposed to. Right? I'm not expecting Carrie Pierce to have to run for her life like a gazelle to get 3rd place dying at the end of Atlanta. But regardless, I just did it for the consistency throughout her showings. And Gabby was not as consistent. That was my only differentiator.
Well, and to round out the conversation, and the reason why I did have Gabby ahead, the 15th and 18th in 2020 to me is a wash. Both were unimpressive, and I know that you want to say this consistency for Danielle. That to me is not only her worst finish, but also her least relevant one. The 10th, and 75th in 2019 is so circumstantial that I don't really know. I mean, you get one workout at the games, like it could be whatever. What if it was a back squat workout first, and Danielle's just like, oh, I didn't even make the top, and it's cut. It's just so random that I can't value that for as far as Gabby being inconsistent. I have no idea how fit she was then. So I'm just in those 2 athletes' cases. I'm not discounting the fact that they made the games. I see those performances there, but I look at the last 3 years and I see 6th, 8th, 4th compared to 11th, 4th, 9th. And I have to put Gabby ahead of her.
Let's
the 6th and the 10th difference.
What was that?
For the difference of the 6th and the 11th.
No, I'm just seeing. She beat her 2 out of the 3 years. The last 2 years were very similar. The year before that was clearly in Gabby's favor. I don't know. I just think that she's been better
No, that's,
over.
that's fair. That's fair.
We already talked, kind of put a wrap this up. I mean, you had some athletes, Christy Aramo, who is just model consistency, Amanda Barnhart. Jamie Green's a very interesting person. She had 2 years where she did not compete at the games because of injury or just failing to qualify out of Oceania. And then she comes back this year, does very well, then gets injured as well. How much of this season, her coming back this season, played into your rankings here?
For me, I would say quite a bit. I mean,
Mhm.
if she had 4 years from 2017 to 2020 consecutive. Her best year comes in 2019, which was the third, which I would say is again not as strong of a third place as some other years, but still a great performance. She had an 8th and 11th prior to that, and she's 12th online. When she's able to come back after missing 2 years, like you said, and still prove herself to be relevant against what we would say is the best or second to best field of women that we've probably ever seen in terms of top end strength, I think she would have finished between 9th or 12th, if not for that elbow injury. She ends up 17th with the new scoring rules that they have. But the fact that she was 8th at the start of this era and comes back and is pretty damn close to that after a bunch of setbacks at the end of the era made me consider her a lock for the top 15. And then it was just kind of sorting it out from there.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. Like, I'm looking at this. For me, it wouldn't differentiate that much. Like, her third place for me does a lot. I know it's 2020 or 2019,
but she's still beating some pretty notable names in that season that did make
in that
the top
10.
20.
Sure, but
Which
you
is
still
good.
have to say it. It still has an asterisk. I know you are, but it's
but behind her is David's daughter, Pierce, Adams, Barnhart, Shadburn, Helga daughter, Brandon. Like those, not Brandon, but the other ones were there.
Anna Frackow,
and she beat them all. No,
dude. So Danielle Brandon would have been allowed to do it if Anna Frackow wasn't there, right?
Yes.
She would have been the one.
I bet she gets higher than 10.
Yeah, I agree.
But if Thor's daughter's allowed to continue, Horvath's allowed to continue, Wells, Briggs, Rolfe, like all of those got cut in the same round. And I know it's only one spot, but it's like we know that if they're allowed to do the
I know. I'm just saying she's the spot.
Yeah.
Then her resume certainly looks different. Yeah.
She would have probably had a top 3 in the swim paddle event because she's a very good swimmer. She would have had a top 3 finish in that and some of those other workouts.
The thing is that at that time we still didn't know who she was. So
we didn't at all.
We could speculate all we want, but she's still, aside from Frackow, she still would have been the least experienced, qualified, or expected person to make that top 10 of the remaining athletes.
Even more than Haley Adams.
I mean, Haley Adams, we'd already seen completely obliterate the individual female field the year before. She'd made 2 regionals up to that point when she wasn't old enough to. So, yeah, I would say yes.
But Jamie's third place for me carries a ton of weight. When you make the podium, the difference between 4th and 3rd is probably the biggest difference there is for me in ranking this is one spot other than 2nd and 1st. I just does so much. I'd put Gabby ahead of her if she didn't come back. But then, that's probably it.
Brian, you brought up when we're talking about Haley Adams about what we knew about her heading into that 2019 season. Did you use that when you ranked Emma Lawson so high? Because obviously Emma Lawson's a very similar, maybe without the regionals, a very similar career path in terms of she dominated the team division. She did compete at at Dubai, which I guess you can kind of throw in there as a regional. You have her at 7th, and John has her where you have her at 15th.
We've explained this, Patrick.
I know, but
just to reemphasize, I just think that Mal O'Brien and Emma. If you're gonna recognize Mal O'Brien's 2 years as being as exceptional as they are, you must acknowledge that Emma Lawson's were just as good.
Yeah,
better.
You could say that the second becomes a third if Tia competes, and if Mal had a year where Tia was pregnant and blah blah, these things they're just as good. It's just as good or better. Fine. And
you want to let 2025 decide if it's better or just as good?
I mean, 2025. We got 2024 to worry about.
2024. I'm sorry, my bad. 2024.
I
meant 2024. Emma Lawson's going to win the CrossFit Games in 2025. That's why that year's in my head with Emma Lawson. But go ahead.
Depends who competes, but she's certainly on a trajectory that is incredibly impressive. Both of them were personal life circumstances took Mal out of the season this year. And so we're left with just those 2 years. I'm not holding the fact that she didn't compete this year against her. But I am recognizing that what those two women did in the 2 years that they've had the chance, to me, is incredible and impressive enough to warrant a spot higher than John's. But I would concede 2 to 3 spots each for them here.
Brooke Wells. John has her.
This has got to be our biggest difference inside the top 15.
Yeah, it is. The 5-point difference or 5-spot difference outside of Mal. Yeah. But when I think of the Madison era, I think Brooke Wells is one of those iconic athletes, and take away just her coming back from just so many different ways. One, her getting injured and then the following year coming back. She has those moments, and she also has she's just an icon in the sport to begin with. So I have to kind of maybe I'd side on with John on this one, and Brian, why
everyone
so low?
He'd side with John on everyone. I know.
Not on all of them. Not on all of them. I don't agree with Danielle Brandon at 10.
Yeah, so Brooke Wells, 6 qualifications, 6 consecutive years. And if you factor in her points from 2021, then she'll have finishes of 5th through 15th as a range during those years. If you're not aware of what I'm talking about, in 2021, her points alone would have placed her 13th at the end of the competition, which is what she would have been awarded this season with the rules that they had, but those weren't the rules then, so they dropped her to the lowest remaining spot, which was 20th. However, if she was able to continue in that season, I think 5th to 7th, probably a good range, John, to where she would have ended up. Would you agree?
Was 7th?
5th to 7th, somewhere in that range?
Yeah. And that's why I have her ranked that high. For 2.5 CrossFit Games, she was 5th place for 2.5 years, if you want to count it. And then she just couldn't complete it. And you can be like, oh, well, she got hurt, so it doesn't count. But 9 of the events, she was the 5th fittest woman in the world in that year too. And
it's always just like John will tell you, hey, if they made the top 20 or the top 5 in 2020, I'm valuing that performance. But a 5th place performance is a last place.
You look at it. Do you dock her for that? I feel like you do.
I would approximate that more to a 10th or 15th place finish.
There's no way you could put a value on that.
I would approximate it to a 10th or 5th place finish. I would extrapolate the field a little bit. I'd say the person that was first is probably going to be first anyway. The one who is second is probably going to be between 2nd and 5th. Third is going to be between 4th and 6th. 4th is going to be between 8th and 12th, et cetera, et cetera.
I disagree. I don't think you can extrapolate like that.
Because, even if you look at those 5 that competed or at the ranch, she did still have, I think, 3 top, 3 finishes. If you would have had a field in there, that she still would have been not only won the event, but been top 5. The handstand and the total, she would have done well in with a full field.
What am I looking
That's
at?
how I kind of look at it. And maybe what was the
No, but look, this is the 2020 year. We had the worst quality of field from top to bottom of probably any year. It's less athletes, and there were some who got in. Some who got in off of some strange circumstances, and that the season was just different. But the athletes that just missed out, Holte, Barnhart, Sanders, and Kristin O'Connell, were all very, very close to making it. And I'm not convinced that she beats all or any of them or some of them if they were to compete there. Same thing with Haley Adams that season. I think that a few of them would have gotten ahead of her. And, there's other athletes that competed that year that didn't make it, like Laura Horvath and Gabby McGowan, that she has been, or especially Laura Horvath, that she's been unable to beat otherwise. So against a full field, I'm not expecting that to be a 5th, but I'm also not crediting her 20th place as a 20th place from the next year. So there's a couple weird circumstances surrounding Brooke Wells. I would be willing to consent a couple spots, but I would not put her inside the top 10 for this era.
How does she? Oh, I guess she can't do that. I guess I'm just valuing her longevity over people like Haley. Like Haley's never done better than 4th, and that was in the 2020 year. She beat her by 1 spot, right? But Haley, you can just kind of say she's a 5th through 7th kind of a person, but she did it for 4 years. Brooke did it for 6 of the 7 years, except 2023. And relatively was top 10 the whole time. I know, like I don't count 2019, but like relatively, right? And I guess I'm just valuing her longevity. If Haley Adams had a third place, kind of like Carrie Pierce, then I put her ahead of Brook. But I value Brook's longevity more than the girls that you have ahead of her, like more than Jamie, Gabby. I guess that's it. And Haley.
Yeah. So like I said, I'd be willing to move her up as high as 11th. Maybe you'd be willing to drop her down as low as 9th. So probably one where you're maybe ranking her 1 or 2 spots high and I'm 1 or 2 spots low.
Yeah. That's fair.
I don't think there's really anyone else we can need to talk to about. I mean, I guess we did talk about Carrie Pierce and where you value her and her career, especially during the Madison era. But then at 6, you have Annie and Kristin Holte. We can't talk about them without talking about the top 5. So let's just move ahead into the top 5.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that we have a top 6 here.
Yes.
Do you want to go through the 1, 2, 3 real quick, and then we'll talk?
Yeah.
Sure.
So we had the same 6 athletes as the same 6 positions. 1, 2, and 3 we had the same. We do want to give credit to them for sure. Tia Claire Toomey. John, you want to summarize Tia's career during this time period for people?
She won.
Decent.
Let's just say she was 6 for 6 in 6 consecutive years.
She won the Madison era. It's like the Madison era. She was first place. Doesn't matter.
There's no argument. No argument. I mean, she got better every year. I mean, the 2017, which was one of the most iconic finishes between her and Cara Saunders, went down to the final event, and then she came back and just started just crushing the field after that. And I think one of the stats, Brian, how many event wins did she have during that Madison era?
33 event wins. And to me, the one that really stands out is 9 event wins in 2021. She did have 13 in 2020, but obviously the field was different there. 9 event wins against a full field.
No, that's the most impressive thing is the 9 event wins in 2021.
Yeah, yep. and it's probably one of the 2 most impressive years ever from any athlete at the CrossFit Games. But as far as the women are concerned, it's a runaway, it's a landslide. She's the best we've ever seen.
Who are the other 2?
Number 1.
Fraser in 18.
That's the other one. I mean, what they did in 2020 is on par with each other, and it's distinct and separate. But Fraser 2018 and Toomey 2021 to me are the 2 best individual performances by a male and female athlete, respectively,
in a routine year.
So far. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, man, dude, 2020 sucks, bro.
I mean, the thing is,
what I'm saying is they were that fit. Like they would have done so. Like if you put a full field on it, they would have. You know what I'm saying? Like what the domination would have been.
We don't know. Yeah, we'll never know.
Whatever. We so know, but we can't say it because there's a freaking asterisk on it. It's so frustrating.
Right. Yeah. That could have been, in different circumstances, better than both of those other years that we mentioned. So Tia Claire Toomey.
And then Justin Medeiros would not be second in the Carson era or whatever. Whatever I said it. Whatever I said it.
Second for you.
Madison era.
Yeah, but again, we don't know. Laura Horvath, second place. We both picked her second here. She comes in as a rookie in 2018, finishes second. She walks out of the era with 3 consecutive podiums in full competition years, second, third, and first, with Tia out of the field this year. Can't hold that against her. She's the only other woman to have a win in this era. Yes, she missed the cuts in 2019 and 2020, but I think that very, very similarly to Pat Vellner, especially, and also Fikowski, everyone who understands this sport can look and see that during those years, she was in live competition. She was just as good. It was not really a regression. It was just a product of the format and the competition structure. And I think a clear number 2.
Yo, if you'd take away those years, and I think you can, think about this: second, third, first.
And
that's pretty insane, right?
Yeah, you're pretty much saying that she couldn't beat Tia. And there was a comment that I think David Arsenault made about how impressive that 2018 rookie performance was by her. If you have not read the article that I wrote after the games this year that asked the question, if Laura Horvath is the second fittest woman who's ever done this sport, I would encourage you to go read that. I think it's one of the better pieces that I've ever put out, and really quantifies her career from beginning to end in a way that can be lost in the shadow of Tia Claire Toomey. And this happens in every sport, where the all-time great comes along and the all-time second great is just nipping at the heels but never able to catch her. And then to me, what really defines Laura's career through the Madison era is that she was able to win when she was expected to in 2023, because it's one thing to compete consistently.
Pretty handedly too. Like you're the favorite and you win handedly.
But when the roles change and you come in as the favorite, the pressure, the expectation is different. And we all know at this point how critical that mental component of this games is. The other thing that I really, really think to Laura's credit is, and I know not everyone loved this, but she was fairly reserved in terms of expressing her goals and her intents for the 2023 season with the purpose of saying, let my fitness show, and then I'll talk to you guys after. And when she talked to us after the 2023 games, I feel like it was like the perfect capstone on her as an athlete over this era in both terms of her physical expression and her maturity as a human, to talk about her understanding that the expectations were there and that's what she wanted to do, but she didn't want to say it and she wanted to do it, coupled with the fact that she's talked about her role in having an influence on women, body image, fitness, health, strength, and all these components, and understanding that and owning it and being proud of it. And I think sending a great message to women across the world. So it was a beautiful ending of a 6-year stretch for her in this case, and solidified my decision here to unanimously second.
One thing I will say is when I was going back and, going through the pictures and doing some research on this before we did this is, if you get a chance, go back, watch the 2018 games, on YouTube, and I mean, I think there's other people that agree with me on this. Like her rookie season that year is probably the most impressive rookie performance ever in the games in the games era. I mean, yes, you can make an argument like what Mal did, Mal or Emma or something like that.
Matt had a pretty good rookie performance.
Yeah, well, true.
But the thing that stands out in terms of Laura is the event wins. It's hard to win events at the CrossFit Games, and she won 3 different events that year, including the final 2 workouts, which the longevity, the ability to recover and perform. It was a long outdoor workout with running, bike, and sled pull, and then it was an indoor workout with, pegboards, which she's a great climber, lightweight thrusters, and
dude, she's kind of like Roman. She's got these
the finish against Tia.
Yeah, home run hits, but like that range across, like it's so much. It's power, but she's got enough cardio to go anything that's heavy. And then she's got this weird pulling ability that a girl her size should not have. Like it's just, she's got this wide variety of a toolkit that she can win events.
John, can you do a little synopsis of Katrin's career in this era, why we picked her third? I have to use the restroom real quick.
Okay, sure. Sure.
This is a first. This is a first.
Yeah. So I mean, Katrin. What's funny is Katrin won 2 years, and then everybody kind of thought she kind of went away, like once Tia started winning because it was the Tia show. But like Katrin has stayed consistent throughout this entire era. She ends up going 5th in 2017, and then 3rd, 4th, 2nd, 10th, and then doesn't go to the games, and then 7th. So in the entire Madison era, she's never finished worse than 10th, and 4 of those years never finished worse than 5th. And it was funny because her placement continued to improve. 2017, she was 5th, and everybody says, "Oh, she's on the down track." And then she goes 4th, 3rd, 2nd, or 3rd, 4th, 2nd, and like just doesn't leave at all. And then she's still 7th place. And I think as long as she wants to compete, kind of like Brian said, it's really hard to break into the top mold for the women. As long as Katrin wants to compete, I think she'll be top 10 in the games until she decides to stop. Because her strengths are not going to go away. Like her best thing is her engine. And she's always kind of like Sam Briggs. Right. Yeah. I know Sam Briggs was the engine, but like Katrin's not going to go away until she wants to go away.
She's one of those athletes we've discussed before. It's like she's an athlete that's made for the game specifically. Like even the year that she didn't make it because of the semifinals, I have no doubt if she would have made it to the games that year, she probably would have finished top 10 because she's just one of those athletes that her body.
2014?
Yeah. No, 2022.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She's the type of athlete who thrives in that type of environment. There's certain athletes that just when they get to the games, they're like someone like Lucas Holberg is a prime example. It's like that guy hates online competitions and doesn't do really good at semifinals, but you get him at the games, he does really well because of that format, that programming. And Katrin's one of those people, one of those athletes that does that. And I think and it shows in her performance. And like you said, her results are the reason why.
So, and like if you look at the fourth place, I think, do we both have Cara?
Yes.
So
and if you bring up Cara was second place and arguably the most.
Oh no, you have Annie fourth.
Annie.
Okay. So let's get rid of Catherine then, and then we'll talk about this because our fourth, fifth, sixth will all be an argument.
Yeah, just want so Tia, Laura, Catherine, we all had 1, 2, 3. Cara Saunders, Annie Thorzad, and Kristin Holte, we each had 4, 5, 6, but in different orders. And John, why don't you go first and talk about how you just, you clearly had these 3 girls kind of in this tier here. How did you make your decision? I think you have Annie and then Cara and then Kristin.
Correct.
Yeah. So reason why I have Annie fourth is because her 2 podiums really, really, really made her. Annie's greatest accomplishment was her 3rd place in 2021. I stand by that. And
more impressive than winning the games in back-to-back years.
Way more impressive.
12. Just want to clarify.
Yeah. Yep. And she got 3rd place in 2017 and then 3rd place in 2021. That let's
just I just want to give a context for people. That 2021 year, she comes back from giving birth, and the women that she beats, Holte, Adams, McGowan, O'Brien, Arima O'Connell, Barnhart, David's daughter, Brandon. That was 4 through 11. And to do that the first year back from giving birth, that's why John is saying that is, and the only people who beat you, by the way, are Tia, Claire Toomey, and Laura Horvath, who are 1 and 2 on this list. And Tia is a unanimous 1 all time, and Laura Horvath's the only woman, maybe Catherine, that you could argue is as good as Annie over the totality of her career.
And if you go Annie versus Cara has the better placement, 2nd, and she almost won, but she didn't. But she is the best placement out of the 2. But it's just by 1. She only has 1 podium, and it was that 1 year. And Cara's been great throughout her whole career, but she just always has something that trips her up or snags her. She gets hurt. But Cara took a year off when she had a baby too, and she tried to come back and got 8th. Annie came back and got 3rd.
7th place. Oh no, 8th. Yes, and then she had the COVID year, and then 7th. Yes.
Yep. And I just Annie's longevity throughout the entire era was greater than Cara's, in my opinion. I almost don't think it can be argued that because she just was, she had gap years, but she's in and out the whole entire time. And then she's 3rd and 3rd placement. I get it. Her average placement is not as high as Cara's, or lowest Cara's, however you want to word it. But she has 2 podiums. Cara's got 1, and her longevity is greater than Cara's. She's it has the iconic snatch moment where she doesn't know what the weight is, but somehow it's and her arms are so ugly on the snatch. It doesn't look great, but somehow she makes it work. And the way the Coliseum roared. So she's got longevity. She's got the moment. She's got the podium placements. If you want to say Cara's 1 second place at Fibonacci in the Fibonacci finale final, where that's a bad moment for her. The other thing, she lost by seconds. It was a bad moment for her, right? Or 2 points. It's not exactly a great moment where she killed everybody. If you want to say that's worth more than what Annie has done in the Madison era, fine. I hard disagree with you.
Yeah. So, and great recall there, Patrick, to get the picture of that. If you haven't watched that, it is worth going back and watching. If nothing else, Annie snatch there. As John mentioned, incredibly powerful moment. I feel privileged to have been in the Coliseum for it. And I was standing actually facing the floor on the side that she's looking at. So it's almost as if she was looking at me with this bewilderment. I can't believe that I've just received the snatch in a good position. No, she's looking over there at Frederick, I'm sure, but or Yami or both. But anyway, I was in the vicinity, and it was incredibly powerful. You can't. Annie Thorzad over the totality of her career, 2nd or 3rd, I would say best who've ever done it, 4th at worst, depending on how you value that. But during this time period, as John talks about and has talked about throughout the thing, it's just coming down to where we're placing the value. And, I'm looking at the range of finishes from Cara. By the way, her worst finish was in 2020, which was 8th place, which was 10 points or something away from making the top 5. It was so tight on the women's side. And Annie's worst finish was last year in 13th. And so while he's valuing those 2 podiums higher than Cara's best finish, I am, as I have been, valuing the lowest finish to be relevant in evaluating their performance. And so I'm rewarding that consistency from Cara from 2nd to 7th in the 4 6-year span that she competed. We did lose some years from both of them. Annie didn't make it in 2020. Cara didn't make it in 2019. They both have had a child. Cara had to withdraw in 2021. Cara missed this year because she's pregnant again. But from what we saw from over the year, I would say it's very close. I just give the nod to Cara for the better finish and the better worse finish.
I would say it's kind of great recaps, by the way, by both of you for their careers and where you have them ranked. I don't think
he's
you
going
can
to
really
side with you, Brian, and I've won this argument so hard. And he's going to side with you because he's been siding with me the whole time.
No, I mean, I really can't really side with either one of you right now because I think you both have really good arguments.
You're gonna play it
I'll put them at both at 5 and leave 4 completely empty. That's just an empty spot. But oh, by the way, some Halpin just broke this. The worst kept secret in CrossFit. Yeah, I think them making this official announcement, I think that might have had something. I will give credit for Barbell Spin for kind of. I think he might have played a hand into them announcing it because, they kind of messed up. And I do not think today was the plan of them announcing the Gorrur as an official sponsor, but I think Barbell Spin kind of made them play that hand. But anyways, so Gorrur CrossFit Games. Here we go. I think after Brian, what
the
you just
gave it away, but go ahead.
Yeah. True. But I think it's kind of funny how their careers are kind of paralleled, especially the better last half of their career. You mentioned the pregnancy, like Cara just had a baby, is going team now. Annie is pregnant right now, and she's expressed her desire to go team. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Annie come back next year and go with a Reykjavik team. But I just think it's kind of funny how their careers have kind of paralleled since the pregnancies and their the back half of their career. So either way, I think
one other just like small distinction between the two of them from this time period that we didn't talk about, even though we talked about the moments. 4 event wins for Cara Saunders, 1 event win for Annie Thorisdottir.
Yeah.
Annie Thorisdottir came in that 2021 year on the penultimate event, deadlifts and freestanding handstand push-ups. Cara had 3 in 2017 as she made a charge to try to challenge Toomey for the overall win, and had 1 more in 2018, none since then.
I want to comment on Midori's comment. Midori of Villeneuve, Chasse, whatever country that is. It's because Justin won, and winning counts more than anything. All right, but absolutely, I've been way more longevity on the women's field than I have the men's field. But the big thing with Justin and Pat is Justin won 2 years. He was the fittest man in the world. I don't think you can. That for me has more value than anything else. That's the biggest differentiator. But all right, that's it. I just wanted to answer that.
Okay.
Hey, just as a hypothetical, if Emma Lawson wins this year instead of takes second, how high up does she move on your rankings?
If she wins this year
against
Tia?
If she had won last year.
Oh, over Laura?
Yeah.
And so it'd be a 6th and a 1st?
Yeah.
Can you show my list again?
Yeah, hold on a sec.
And how much, like, and if you, let's say you moved her up to 10th based on that win.
Oh, no, I'm going to move her higher than that.
You'd move her even higher. And would you move Mal at all?
No. I would move Emma Lawson to 8th.
Ahead of Brooke Wells, behind Carrie Pierce. So that's I just wanted to highlight that if you've been listening to John carefully, the first place is massive. The difference between first and second is huge. Same thing for second to third, third to fourth, fourth to fifth. Those top 5 spaces, you have to consider a very exponential scale when you're understanding specifically how John's ranking those. I would agree that it is definitely like each spot up those rankings is critical, but I probably weigh them less than John does. And I thought that was just a good opportunity to highlight that.
Mm-hmm. You know how hard it is to win, man? Ask Pat.
There's only been 2 and 3 total winners during this, 5 total winners out of 14 opportunities during this era.
Dude, wouldn't to be the fittest person in the world, like it's you deserve to climb up the list. Because ain't none of them other girls did that.
Right. And I think that just leaves Kristin Holte, who we haven't spoken about here.
No one ever speaks about her.
Yeah, she is. I think she is largely underappreciated, and part of it is that she just competed during a time period where there were women that were just slightly better than her. And Toomey, David's daughter, Horvath specifically, I think she deserves to be in this conversation with Cara Saunders and Annie Thorsdottir. John, do you agree that she's in the conversation, or do you view her as just like the best of the rest after those five?
I think she's the best of the spot.
Yeah, so you would say that Cara and Annie are pretty close. Kristin's just right behind.
I would say Cara and Annie are pretty close, and I think they are close, but I feel very confident that Annie is the better of the two. But I would put them in the same group, and then Kristin Holte cannot be ignored as she is the best one after that.
Yeah,
I'm surprised. I'd like your argument as to why Kristin Holte is better than Annie.
You like it, or you'd like to hear it?
No, I'd like to hear it. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So just if you're not familiar with Kristin's career during this time period, she competed from 2017 through 2021 and has not competed since, as she's chosen to focus primarily on Krieger training and the development of that, obviously having a huge influence on some of the success with the teams and individuals who have been coming out of Norway. She comes into the era and takes back-to-back seventh places in 2017 and 2018, and then goes second and sixth during those kind of awkward years. The second place probably is going to weigh less than those other podium finishes that John talks about, just because of the year that it happened in, and because it's a little bit of an outlier compared to her other performances. The sixth, just like Cara Saunders' eighth, means she misses the top five and the chance to compete live in 2020. Both of them were just a few points out from making it, so I kind of consider those more or less of a wash there. And arguably her best finish was 2021, where she finished fourth, one spot behind Annie. Cara did not compete that year, and then Kristin didn't compete after that. So I would say that to John's points, she's probably going to have for him the worst podium finish in that second place in the strangeness of 2019.
She doesn't for you?
I'd say it's more. Yeah,
you know the answer to this.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably more like probably comparable to her fourth in 2021, which is one spot worse than Annie. And you're probably going to say that, well, Annie had a chance to compete against her in 2017, 18, and 21 and beat her in all of those years. And my counter to that would just be that 5 straight years, second through seventh, the range is incredibly small. The consistency is incredibly high. And I felt that I would get some criticism for this and people would want to see Annie ahead of her. I felt that you would take that also. And I put this ranking here because I want to include her in that group with them three. I'm okay with conceding one spot to him here, but I did want to give some acknowledgement to an athlete that I think deserves more than she's gotten over her career.
That's a very good way to get out of that. I agree with you. I'll concede. I just wanted to talk about her, so I put her here so we can talk about her.
It's great, and there were some people who saw Annie in 6 and took exception to it relative to Holte. There were some people who saw the top 5. Even some of the most critical people of my rankings ever said that they liked this pick of the top 5, and it made me feel good just to know that whether you think she's 5th or 6th amongst these women, that people understand how great she was during the Madison era.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with it. I definitely think she deserves to be talked about. Yeah, for all the reasons that you said. I almost kind of like you do with the worst finish. I think you're way too harsh on people with their worst finish. But like, if your best 2 years, and Veronica's not gonna like me for this, but if your best 2 years are in the weird years, it does.
Hers aren't. Her best finish is
her best and her third best. Right. The fourth year, I agree with you. The fourth in the 2021 is probably her best finish. So I'll just say your best finish. When your best finish is in the weird years, just doesn't do it for me.
No, and it's like this. When I look at those finishes, a 2nd and a 6th, it doesn't seem that crazy. Like the years prior were 7th, and the year after.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
So
but you've never been close to podium ever, and then now you're 2nd. Like it's
right. That's why I would say it's probably more like a 7th, 4th, 6th, 4th, which is still exceptional. Whereas when you look at Carrie Pierce and you see,
but that's not better than Annie.
But when you see the 5th and the 3rd in those years for a Carrie Pierce, and you see previous a 10th and a 6th, you're like, I don't know, is that like, was she really continuing to get better across that time period, or was it
Yeah.
circumstantial? And I have a
Yeah.
little more questions. And Annie, during those years, just like Daniel Brandon, barely missed the cut. She's credited with an 11th. It was a 12th at the time, and she didn't compete in 2020. So
yeah, it's rough. I mean, I feel like we're working with what we have to work with, and it's just an unfortunate.
So anyway, I would go all the way back to what we said at the beginning. All of these women are incredible. I really appreciate John's perspective, the way that he evaluates things. It's not a mistake that I invite him on these shows. I think he has a ton to offer. I hope that you guys do too. John, just feel like you have a thought that you're just dying to say.
No, I'm appreciating the flattery. I'm soaking it in.
Hey, while we that puts a wrap on the Madison era. Hopefully we'll all be around to do the Fort Worth era. But while I have you guys on, do you guys want to go through this GoRuck press release?
I mean, you can pull it up real quick. I prefer to wrap it up in the next few minutes, but we can take a look at it. It's relevant and current.
Yeah. So, GoRuck named the official apparel and footwear partner of CrossFit and the CrossFit Games. Partnership to focus on CrossFit affiliates and engaging the overall community. So, the naming rights for, I think a lot of people get mistaken. The naming rights for the games, that sponsor, it's expensive. It's probably a value of $3 to $5 million. The title sponsor pays the whole prize purse. So that's where the prize purse comes from. It doesn't come from CrossFit. It doesn't come from your affiliate fees. It doesn't come from, the open fees. It comes solely from the title sponsor. So I think that's first and foremost, that's why a title sponsor is so important to have, especially for the games athletes. So yeah, that being said,
I mean, look, it was a big question mark. Obviously things that were unfolding with Noble last year had people scratching their heads and continued to asking questions about whether it was going to be viable to continue to support the games in the way that Patrick just talked about. It kind of became evident that wasn't going to be the case. And then, people were kind of waiting to see what was. And, GoRuck has had an increased presence in the CrossFit space at high level competitions over the past few years. And, it's not, I wouldn't say it's that big of a surprise to see them wanting to be involved in this way.
Yeah. This exciting partnership will extend beyond the CrossFit Games, as GoRuck will also be the presenting sponsor of the 2024 CrossFit for Health Summit. CrossFit's partner
1 month from now in Austin, Texas.
Correct. Which is where
is it in Austin or Fort Worth, actually?
I believe it's in Austin. Yeah, it's in Austin.
I think are you the Dickies Arena?
No. The Health Summit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. CrossFit's
if it doesn't have to do with the top 10 athletes all time, John doesn't care.
CrossFit's partner in presenting the CrossFit Open and the CrossFit Games, and the official uniform provider for athletes who qualify for and compete at the games, scheduled for August 8th through 11th at Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas. Now, this is something, a lot of people look at GoRuck as just they just make backpacks and sandbags and stuff like that, but they do have apparel. They do have a shoe. So it'll be interesting to see how they make the uniforms, and they either they do it themselves or they partner with someone else to do it as well.
Well, also will be interesting to see if they end up sponsoring any athletes over the course of this season.
They already sponsor Emily Rolfe. Emily Rolfe is an exclusive GoRuck athlete, which makes total sense if you think about it. But
she won the Ruck event in 2019.
Yeah, but
how many people do you think are going to be ruck running in their training now?
I mean, people already probably should.
I know, but I bet a lot of people are now.
PC, I actually love this idea from Hold the Standard of closing out the show at the greatest single event from the Madison era.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll.
I feel like there's a unanimous answer.
Yeah, we'll close that one out. But good job, Hold the Standard. CrossFit and GoRuck share a similar ethos. I believe in power of doing things in deep downfall. The partnership will see GoRuck launch a new CrossFit branded apparel line while delivering apparel and footwear to all CrossFit seminar staff.
Interesting.
Complementing the partnership, CrossFit trainers who hold a level 1 training certificate or higher will have access to exclusive programs, discounts, and other benefits with the brand. So that's kind of
I, li-
new, I
I
think.
yeah, and I like that. I think that, the next section is going to talk about Gorrur believing in the community, and I
Yep.
think that this parallel is needed between the sport and the community, and the seminars and the seminar staff and the level one and the training component of CrossFit as well. And there's been this divide kind of feeling since 2018-19 between CrossFit health and CrossFit sport or games, and this is Gorrur, I think, showing some initiative. And I believe this probably has a lot to do with Dave Castro also, who has, very heavy interest in both parts. He's, a military guy, Gorrur guy. He's had their shoes and been promoting them for a while. And it just, I think that it's a good look to have this integration being recognized by the title sponsor of the games, showing some emphasis and value on the trainers or, in the CrossFit community globally.
So Jason McCarthy, founder and CEO of Gorrur. Jimmy Letchford, the president, I know personally. He actually was one of the original CrossFit employees. I think he states that here, so he's very familiar. Jimmy's usually the forward-facing person when they're at these events. He's usually there. At the core of the new relationship with Gorrur's CrossFit shoe, the ballistic trainer, and their ultra supportive rough runner shoes built for miles underweight, such as rucking or CrossFit. Both are designed by Paul Litchfield, head of Gorrur Footwear and inventor of the Reebok pump. Paul has over 35 years of design experience and holds 160 plus patents. So
Damn, that's a lot of patents.
I know that is. But it seems like it's really weird because you look at all these shoe companies like Noble, the founders of those, they were former Reebok employees. And then you're seeing a lot of the Reebok people branching off and onto these other companies. And even like someone like the Born Primitive, Bear has said that their design is based off the Reeboks, I believe the 3s or the 4s, but yeah. So we do have a title sponsor. No big surprise. It was, like I said, it was probably one of the worst kept rumors, and I will give credit to Barbell Spin on kind of breaking that, kind of breaking it and kind of doing some investigative things. If you saw his story, he noticed that Gorrur was the top of the list of sponsors yesterday, and then today when he went back that list, Gorrur was removed from that list.
Yeah,
and then today,
I mean, this and he is so good at stuff like that. I mean,
yes,
I know
very
that
good.
Dude,
some people
he's fast, man.
like
He's got like
well, I know that some people took exception to something I said about him a month or two ago, where he's like, he's at home and he's got a situation where he can look into some of this stuff. But I meant it in a complimentary way, and I meant that in the sense that if you want to know what's going on with the CrossFit space quickly and timely, he's a great resource, and you should definitely be following the stuff that he's putting out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So let's end the show that way. That Hold a Standard suggested. So let's go back.
I want to know what John's going to say here. He thinks that it's an obvious answer. I have a super to me, this is a no-brainer. There's only one event that comes to mind for me. But John, what is your...
The Capitol, man? I feel like that was one of the greatest events of all time. And so many different things happened in it. The race between Roman and Ricky. And then Ricky, I feel like everybody thought Roman was just going to win whenever he went from here to here, holding the bag. And then Ricky just overtakes him. And then Haley crumbling. What people don't talk about, though, Lazar crumbled harder than Haley did. And it's lost because the announcers only know Haley Adams' name. They don't know foreign people's names. And I'm all about the foreigners. Everybody thinks I love America, and I hate people not from USA. I feel for Lazar. I noticed he was dying, and it's just a very fun event to go back and watch. And how easy Travis Mayer made it look when he won, and then he too just died. There's so many storylines.
Yeah, and actually, Draw Your Dagger stole my thunder there a little bit. For me, this is Strongman Sphere. And it's an event that I think gets some credit, but maybe not as much credit as it deserves. I thought it was a brilliant plan. It's a weird workout in one sense, is that you could choose the order in which you did the implements. And usually I'm not a huge fan of that, especially in open setting when they had the muscle ups, wall balls, rowing, and you could do that any way you wanted. But for that specific competition, the way that workout was designed, I felt like it created go back and watch the last heat of the men's, go back and watch the last heat of the women's. What you're going to see from Katrin David's daughter is just superhuman stuff. And the race between Fikowski and Fraser is iconic. It was the first year in Madison. I thought it set the stage for some great outdoor events there at the turf field throughout the rest of the era. And it's a workout that I would put up there as one of the best all time, one of the top 5 all time in the history of the games, maybe top 3. And I'm not going to
flow together really well.
Yeah.
And I don't want to I don't think there's any problem with picking the capital at all. The iconic nature of that event is legendary. But for me, Strongman Sphere stands out as the one that I would choose.
Those are both 2 very good ones. I mean, I unfortunately
the race in Strongman Sphere, I think, makes it. If there wasn't a Fraser Fikowski race at the end, I think Fraser might take a little less.
I think of Strongman Sphere similarly to push pull. Like what Josh and Rich did.
They made the workout.
Yeah, it just and it left this the kind of thing we've been talking about throughout the show, this moment that you just can't separate from. So I don't know. It's just such a strong memory for me.
Yeah, I like those 2. I really do. I mean, the Capitol, I wish I was able to witness that in person, but I was busy shooting Masters events in the Coliseum. But I would also like to
priorities, man. It's all good.
I guess so. Chaos was one personally that I liked, but it's just one of those weird events because I was involved in that as a judge. I still like Cut 1 too from 2019. I just thought it was just a perfectly programmed event. First cut, sorry, yeah. And then but the moment I would say is the max clean from 2019. Because that was probably one of the first events that I actually got to sit there and soak in and enjoy and not have to worry or work or shoot or do anything judge and just to watch. And Matt, you had a feeling in that Coliseum when Matt won that event that he was going to win. I mean, Noah was in first and everyone was like talking about, it was just so fun to watch. And then Tia and Amanda Barnhart going back and forth. Those 2, it'd have to be the clean event from 2019 for me personally. It was just so cool to watch in person. And it was just, I think that was kind of like the standard because ever since then, as good as the sandbag was, we didn't have a definitive winner. They had to go to a tiebreaker, which kind of ruined that event. And in some of these other events we've had.
Dude, if just any one of those guys had finished that last lap, it would have been, the roof would have come down, John.
Instead, we had a tie between Nick Matthew and Guy Maros. So,
I mean, have you ever given Brent crap for that? You speak to Brent, right? Like
I've spoken to him about it. Yeah, he basically just is
he did it. He freaking did it. It just was like just didn't
lost
settle.
Composure for that last second and didn't finish out the rep. And that just goes to show that even late in your career, there's things that can be learned, through competition. Only thing I remember from Capital is Rebecca Fusile. Yep, we mentioned it earlier. Definitely that moment stands out.
I wonder if she gets sick of hearing about that.
No, I would.
Yeah, because it was the last place finish. But
yeah, man, I remember when you sucked so bad. Like that's what people are saying every single time. Like you could say, "Oh man, it must have been forever." Dude, she knows she like it was a terrible moment for her. I don't know, it's a great community moment, but I would get sick of it if it was me.
Yeah.
But the live stream was trash for the Capitol, says Veronica. How did Laura pass everyone except Gabby? Still don't know. Did she carry the bag unbroken? And we may never know. So it's super hard to cover the off-site events. I know that the guys involved in that spent literally weeks or maybe a month longer planning for that event singularly, and the product is what you guys saw, but it is that hard. And if you're just trying to talk about the best workouts and you didn't get to experience it that way, I could certainly see where you'd hold it against that when you have other ones that you clearly got the full picture of from your home on the screen back home. Great show. Goodbye to Madison. Thanks for that question. Hold the standard. Yeah, excellent. I thought that was a fun way to end the show and to kind of conclude this era. I hope you guys have enjoyed. We did do this for the Carson era as well back in July, June, August, something like that. July. If you missed those, go back and check them out. John and I go at it back then as well. I put out some rankings for the ranch era. I just think it's cool to see the different evolutions, the different athletes that excelled during those time periods and have something to go back and look at. And with, Gorrur stepping in here in a new era, not just in terms of logo, sponsor, but also location. I think there's a lot to look forward to for 2024. But in the immediate future, Wadapalooza will be coming up next week.
John, what are you doing? What do you got? Are you going to be down at Wadapalooza?
I will not be. I'm going to be sitting in this chair, and I think I'm going to be on like Sevon's 24/7. I'm basically just going to be up for anybody who needs me. So like if Taylor and them want me, they can have me. If you guys want me, you can have me. I'm just going to be on whatever people want and try to be available 24/7.
Yeah.
Patrick and I will be down in Miami. I'll be doing some commentary on the broadcast alongside the guys from Talking Elite Fitness. And we got the individuals will compete for 2 days. The teams will compete for 2 days. Next week, I'll have some articles coming out previewing the individuals, the teams, and then the programming, which most of which has already been released, which is pretty cool. And then, as John said, there'll be wall-to-wall coverage. Spin will be doing stuff. Sevon podcast, of course. Catch out the live podcasts on there from Shut Up and Scribble guys. Pedro, Coffee Pods and Wads will be doing some stuff. So you should have no.
And I'm gonna be on that debate show, the Coffee Pots.
Oh, you got the invite. Let's go.
January 24th. So
do you know who you're going against yet?
I'm gonna be against the CEO from GoWad, and then I don't know who the other one is. Okay. But yeah, so stay tuned for that. I'm not allowed to. I watched one the other day, and I'm not allowed to interrupt people, so I don't know how good I'm gonna do. Because that's like my best. That's like my best tactic. Is just to shout people down. So I don't know. We'll see.
Practice rehearsing what a minute feels like, because you have great stuff to say, but if you don't get in the minute, it doesn't matter.
Oh, I'm good at it. I got my timer. I can see my timer. You know what I mean?
You're a 1 minute man.
Yeah. No, I'm good. I can get a lot of stuff done.
If Fikowski can do it, say what he had to say, in under a minute, then you can. Because if you Brent, I don't think I've ever heard Brent say so much in so less of words. So less of time, I guess. But
and that's the beauty of the format. Pedro's been having great guests on, and you get a variety of different perspectives in a quick format where the topics have been pretty good. So that's awesome that you're going to be able to do that too.
Oh, don't forget JY Barbell. Come on, pitch it, John.
I mean, where is that?
There
it is. Yeah. If you are interested in strength training or getting stronger or just CrossFit in general, I full-time train like 2 Masters Games athletes now, which is kind of cool. And like not just strength stuff. So just DM me on Instagram at JY Barbell, and we'll hook something up.
Pretty soon we're gonna have to get that LLC for you. You keep on getting more clients.
No, I'll just stay on Venmo. It's fine. Nobody has to know.
The IRS isn't watching this show, so
they don't care about JY Park. I'll never get that big. So.
But thanks again, John, for coming on. It's always fun having you on and debating these and just seeing where you're at. As you know, John is the senior analyst for the Sevon podcast and also for Barbell Spin, and you can catch him weekly. What is it, Wednesdays that you go on weekly with Barbell?
Yeah, Wednesdays at 6:30 with on Barbell Spin, and then Sevon's, if it's the update show, it'll be on Friday. But it's kind of a free for all. Y'all know how that is. So
yeah. So,
like we said at the beginning of the show, if you stuck with us, we appreciate that. If you missed J.R. Hall and Taylor Self on Shut Up and Scribble, check that out. Those two, alongside Bill and Chase, are the best you're going to get in the business in terms of programming, analysis, and evaluation, both for competition, and they've been branching into some of the affiliate stuff, personalized coaching, whatever. If you're interested in that, those guys are a great resource, so check them out.
Yep. And with that being said, we will see. We will probably do a recap or a preview show next week. Probably, hopefully, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll let you know. But everyone's sticking around. Appreciate the support as always. Make sure you follow us on all our social media platforms, as well as John Young at .CrossFit or J Barbell. So, well, happy New Year's to everyone. Welcome. We're all safe. We get to start off with Wadapalooza, and then now we got a lot of good things that are going to be happening here. I have a feeling, not just with a new logo and a new sponsor, but a lot of other things on the horizon, I think, and it's all positive stuff. And we'll always be here, as always, covering it. So, as always, stay friendly, be friendly, our friends.